Hey friends, Pastor Michael from Organic Church, here with Sydney Erickson, Pastor Holly Daisy, Nick Offolter, Pastor Roger Deerdorf. You know, I was thinking about this week's topic when I sent it to you guys. You guys did get it, right? Because I think Holly's the only one that gave me a thumbs up.
Crickets.
Yeah, crickets, at this point.
I thought I did.
No.
But maybe I didn't.
Holly gave me a thumbs up. And
I thought I said sounds good, but maybe not.
You did.
I did. Thank you.
Okay, I was going to say maybe I wasn't paying attention. That's possible, too.
I just never answer him.
It's because he can't find his phone.
Or doesn't know how.
Or doesn't know how, right. Well, I was thinking about we talked about it a little bit the week previous, and the question still comes up regularly. As a matter of fact, I've gotten it 2 more times just this week. When people are asking me about things that they know or have been convicted about and they don't want to give it up. And so Philippians 2:12 is super easy to fall back on, but it can be a cop-out. So that's why I want to talk about it. I want to make sure that we're not treating it as a cop-out. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually going to read it. I got to swap.
He's got a Bible,
my Bible, my iPad, my phone, yeah.
And a laptop.
So it says, Wherefore ever, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And it's really easy for us to say that to somebody who is struggling with something that they feel convicted about. We say, well, you're supposed to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. So let's say somebody comes up to you and says, well, I really love Halloween and I want to celebrate Halloween. Well, as Christians, it's not something most of us do. Right. I'm not saying it's anybody who's doing it like it is what it is. Mm-hmm. But as a pastor, I typically tell them this. Philippians 2:12 will tell you to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. However, if you're asking me that question, that means you're convicted. Right. It means you have a conviction. That means that God is speaking to you in such a way that says you feel like you need to give that up. Mm-hmm. So that's blocking something. So just give it up. Yes. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I want to talk through that topic. Now, I hope I didn't just cover the whole thing and we're done now.
Be a record time.
Yeah, record time. What was it? We started at 6:06. At 6:08, podcast is over. Trivia for tomorrow. How long was the podcast? Record time.
I had one observation I wanted to bring up from the past week.
Yeah.
I think this was after our podcast last week. I'm pulling out of Macaulay Drive there from the Dollar Market, and the person on the back of their car has a bumper sticker that is in the shape of like a red ticket, like you would give away at a raffle. Mm-hmm. And it says, here is my ticket. In the middle, it says hell. Mm. And I just think, wow. Okay, so...
Loud and proud.
Yeah. Loud and proud, yeah. And you just wonder how little people actually think about their salvation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like there's some people that are just very blatant, like you can tell they're not thinking about it at all. In fact, they're like, they got their ticket.
They're just having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that goes, like, I think a lot of people think, once I'm done breathing, I'm done. Yeah. And it's like, you might be right, but you might be wrong, and I'd rather not test the waters.
I've told my brother that a million times. He goes, well, but you could be wrong. And I said, you're right. I could be wrong. But I've lived a happier life being kind to people and doing good things. Mm-hmm. And you've lived a life of absolute misery. Yeah. If I'm wrong, I go in a hole in the ground and know no different. If you're wrong,
same thing.
You're going to know.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're going to spend eternity in misery.
Yeah. He did have another bumper sticker. I won't say what it said but it just had Ben Franklin's face on it and then a really derogatory, which had nothing to do with Ben Franklin. So
right.
I'm like,
which was more offensive to Nick than...
Can't repeat that live.
The red ticket.
It is really fascinating that people just simply don't think about salvation. They don't think about the end of the road.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
The older you get, though, the more you think about it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So having just had a birthday and turning 37, which, by the way, fun story, has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it is a fun story. So you know how when you make bad decisions in life, it comes back to haunt you? Mm-hmm. So you guys remember my last driver's license photo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good stuff. Looked like a mugshot. So I forgot that my driver's license was due to be renewed in 2023, which would have been on the 5th. What is today?
It's 9th.
No, that's okay. You still have time.
Well, okay. So it's fine that my driver's license is expired, but the van that Alyssa drives is in my name, which means the tags are also expired, right? So I drive a company car. My tags aren't expired. It's no big deal. So guess who got pulled over last night?
No.
You were in trouble.
Driving a car with expired tags. No, it wasn't last night. It was the night before. But the cop gave her a warning. She was driving with her high beams on. Didn't even know she was doing it. Didn't even know she was doing it.
Well, she don't have the automatic high beams, does she?
I think
our Honda does.
I think she does, but I think she just turns them on permanently. Like my Jeep, you can't just turn them on permanently. They're auto. But anyhow, so he was flashing his high beams at her to get her to turn them on. But apparently she didn't know what that meant, and so she just kept driving. And so he finally pulled her over.
Gave her a shot.
He told her that he would give her a warning for her high beams, but said that she had some homework to do. And she's like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, the registration is expired." And I would have never gone to renew that registration had that not happened, because I didn't even think about it. So this morning I went and did all of that.
That's your first stop.
Yeah. And I believe for the first time ever in my life, my driver's license address actually matches my home address. You know, I'd go and get my driver's license renewed, and then I'd move halfway across the state. So it would have. I'd update it at the BMV so that if they ran it, they would get the right address. But
so when you voted, if you did during those times, would you have to go to no?
Nope, didn't have to do anything.
See, because now they check
They check mine.
driver's license, but maybe they don't check the address. I don't know. Maybe they just check the photo.
Yeah, they checked mine. So didn't matter. But I did not get to vote in. Was it Monday? Yesterday. Yeah, I didn't get to vote yesterday because my driver's license was expired. So it's not a valid form of identification as far as they're concerned. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I did yesterday, and the lady took my ID, and she's looking at it, and she goes, "Okay, state your full name." I'm like, "Is this a trick?"
You know, you've got my ID,
like,
right?
Okay, yeah. And then state your address. I'm like, why would I walk in with somebody else's ID and at least not look at it first?
Yeah.
At least memorize some of it.
Yeah.
Maybe so you could vote 3 or 4 different
Yeah.
Did you have the beard on it?
Oh, yeah. So
it is strange.
Oh, you had a hat on.
It's kind of weird. No?
Yeah, it's the rules and they're not the same in every place either.
Well, last November, what was it? Apparently I had to change my name through the voters because association or whatever, because I got married. Well, I was like, oh great, I stood in line for like 40 minutes and I thought they were going to be rude about it, but they let me change it there.
Nice.
So I don't know how accurate my vote was, like if it went through or not, but they did let me. So
good times.
Yes.
Good times. Well, so pulling back to working out your own salvation with fear and trembling, so what are some of the opportunities where we've used that scripture in the past? Halloween has been the big one. It's been the hot button topic just in the past couple of weeks for me. It's the one that I probably get the most.
Yeah.
And then the other is always cigarettes. Well, I'm a smoker. Yeah. Oh, I was too.
Right.
But I didn't really start forming a solid relationship with Christ until I gave all of that up. That was hard. Do you know what I mean? Like to walk away from something that I'd done for so long, that was a hard one for me. But I was able to say, if this is what his will is in my life, then that's what I have to do. But I had to wait for that conviction too. Like I tried naturally to give it up multiple times and it didn't work. But when he was like, all right, I'm telling you, you're going to lay it down. Yeah. It was easy. It was, I mean, don't get me wrong. If I smell Camel Menthol Silver off, but I have no desire to go smoke one. I have no desire to go smoke one.
Now I will say with my aunt, hers is kind of opposite. Like she was deep like in her relationship, but she just could not give it up. And I think it was like 13 years later she finally did. I don't know what caused it, but I guess it could go both ways.
Yeah, but when that moment hits, when that desire to give it up comes, when that conviction settles in, it's easy to do.
Yeah.
But the problem is we look, sometimes we feel convicted, but we still don't want to give it up, so we pretend like we're not. And we make excuses as to, well, if I'm going to work out my own salvation with fear and trembling, that means I can do whatever because I'm saying I don't feel convicted. It's easy to say I don't feel convicted even when I do.
Yeah.
On the outside, I can look put together, kind of like a duck. They always say, a duck glides across the water on the top, but its feet are going 100 miles an hour into the bottom. But we don't see that part of the duck. We only see the duck gliding across the water. And that's our salvation ends up that way. From the outside, we look like we're just sliding across the top of the water, but really, most of us are paddling underneath desperately, trying to stay. Like, when we come in on Thursday for prayer and we're here on Wednesday night for podcast and we, Sunday morning, and some of us early Sunday morning. So we're doing all of those things so that everybody else can have an experience with Jesus that maybe we don't get the same way because we're working. We're doing all of the behind the scenes stuff. So when that conviction hits, we're saying, just listen, because we're working hard
to
make sure that can happen. But yeah.
Well, I have a New Living Translation.
That's what I have too. That's why I read it out of KJV. Because NLT actually doesn't say.
It says it different.
Yes. Yeah.
The header for it is "Shine Brightly for Christ." It says, "Dear friends, you always follow my instructions when I was with you, and now that I am away, it is even more important. Work hard to show the results of your salvation, obeying God with deep reverence and fear." And so for Dave and I, we stand on that scripture because maybe this makes sense, maybe it don't. But he's not my Holy Spirit, and I'm not his Holy Spirit.
Right.
And we both have to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. So maybe God allows me to do a certain thing that he's not allowed to do. And maybe he does things that I'm not allowed to do.
Right.
And so that can cause conflict in the home.
Yeah.
And so we just have to be real honest with each other and be like, you know what, you're working out yours, I'm working out mine.
Yeah.
And, only God knows my heart.
Well, and you're two different people, so that's only normal, you know? Like, of course, you're going to be convicted different ways.
Yeah, so even in church, not as pastors, but as congregants, people do things that upset you. People say things like, what? I'm working out my salvation, you work out yours.
Yeah, that was one of the points that I was going to make. So I brought up Halloween specifically because I was asked, the weeks run together at this point.
Well, I feel like once August 1st hits, everyone's like, it's Halloween.
Yes, right.
So
it's
now
fall.
It's on everyone's mind.
Pumpkin spice everywhere. But I had somebody ask me about it after church last Sunday. I said, give it up, because if you're feeling convicted.
Yeah.
They said, well, I'm not feeling convicted. And my response was, if you're talking to me, you're feeling convicted. Yeah. Right. There's a reason we're having this conversation. Yeah. So then I got a text about it. And then I saw another member of our church post, anybody who does Halloween stuff is allowing evil spirits into their home, so on and so forth. And I'm thinking to myself, it's so hard with social media because we can so freely share our opinions. And we can wound one another very easily just by saying things like that.
Yeah.
Because we are, in fact, each and every one of us working out our own salvation. And so it's easy to get lost in what we feel is right, what we think we should be doing in our lives. Listen, I've been saved a long time, maybe not as long as some of the people in this room, but I've been saved for a long time. And I am confident that I can do certain things without allowing myself to trip up. Now, would I do those in front of somebody who I know struggles with those things?
Right.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Yeah.
Would I ever, if I were to say, I'm going to go have a glass of wine, but I found out that Sid was a recovering alcoholic, would I have a glass of wine in front of Sid? No, I wouldn't, because I know that that's only me complicating her life, right? So I'm working out my own salvation, but I'm being respectful of hers.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not trying to make her life harder. I'm not trying to make her relationship with Christ more difficult. I want her to succeed just as much as I want to succeed. But we can really quickly, really, really easily tear each other down by saying things that we haven't necessarily thought all the way through.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that worries me just about where we are in the world today. When we use that passage of Scripture, we can use it to abuse one another. We can use it to club one another into submission, to say, well, I'm convicted by that, or this is a stumbling block for me, so you shouldn't do it. There's a lot of stuff that, like, my wife and I, you'll notice, we're not big social media users, where we both have a presence and we both post on social media, but it's typically about our kids or something cute and flowery. Like, we're cautious about who we invite into our home for lots of reasons. Like, there are people who could walk into our home and say, oh my gosh, they have a beautiful house. Again, they're paid too much. Or, oh, this place is nothing. Like, what are they doing with their money?
Yeah.
Right.
All of those things. So we're cautious. We guard our hearts, we guard our family against a lot of people, but mainly because we know that people could walk into our house very easily and say, well, they're not living the way that we feel like they should live. Well, that's our situation to deal with. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's because God knows your heart.
Right.
And nobody else does.
Right.
That's why we can't judge people, because we don't know what's going on inside here.
But
We
you
can
think-
see
you
what
think-
we
you think-
think.
Yeah.
You think those people are living the way they're supposed to?
Well, no,
Or
the
are
fact
just
that they
judging you for
the
the
fact
way
that they walk into your house and start judging you because
Right
of
away.
something that they've seen tells me they're not living the right way.
I
But
invited you in.
explain that to somebody.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
because
No.
they're like, "Oh, you're only saying that because you know you're doing this." Well, that's not, you know.
Yeah.
I was just listening to a teaching the other day about ye without sin cast the first stone.
Yes,
That's right.
You know, that's pretty black and white right there.
Yep. We had. You know, I'm not going to share that story. We had I'm not going to share it specifically. We had a situation today that I had to deal with. It was incredibly uncomfortable. Like, I'm looking at these people like, why am I involved in, like, why am I having to have this conversation? And I realized that, you know, that's the responsibility we have as Christians, not just as pastors, not just as leaders, but as Christians, to have hard conversations with people whenever we don't want to have those conversations. Like, to look at somebody and say, I'm disappointed in you because you did this. While it doesn't feel good, sometimes you have to do it. It's not, I'm not angry at you.
Right.
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed because we're standing here having a conversation that we both know we don't need to have.
Yeah.
Now, you have to have a lot of grace in those conversations because that is their salvation.
Right.
But there are things that are black and white wrong. We don't lie, we don't steal, we don't covet, all of those things. And when we do those things, guess what?
You're getting punished
Well,
some way.
it's not gonna feel good.
Yeah.
It's not gonna feel good. Inevitably, something's gonna happen it's gonna cost you dearly.
Might not be right now.
Yes. Well, and the big one is we're teaching that to our children. Every one of us who are raising kids, we're teaching that to our children.
Like, this is okay.
Right. Here are things that are okay. Here are things that are not okay. One of the things that we don't do in our house now. There are secrets in our house, like when you know what somebody's getting for a birthday. But there aren't secrets like my kids don't keep a secret from mom because I've asked them to.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's not okay in our house because because if we're keeping secrets and then something happens, God forbid something were to happen with another adult and they were like, well, don't tell your mom and dad. They think it's okay to keep that secret. In our house, we don't keep secrets from adults.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable.
It's not healthy.
Right. And some people would say, well, it's not unhealthy. Listen, this is
if it's not healthy, I don't know what you want to call it.
My wife is a people watcher. She loves to observe people in their natural habitats. And a lot of times you see some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So Adeline takes gymnastics at the Y. And Roger, you're creating all kinds of buzzing noises because you're pulling on your microphone.
Sorry. Jeez.
And there is this couple that have children that they're like helicopter parents.
Oh.
And it disgusts me.
Does Roger know what that is?
Do you know what a helicopter parent is? Like they're like doting over their children all the time. And like the kids will say something to him and they'll be like, well, how did that make you feel when so-and-so said such and such? And I'm like, bleh. But anyhow, so we're watching this couple and every time you see them, they're doing that. So it's real life. Like they're not putting this on. Like this is how they raise their kids. That's fine. It's just not what I do. It's not how I operate. And one time Alyssa took them and she called me. She's like, Michael, something's going on with this family. I'm like, what do you mean? Because like now I'm invested, right?
Yeah.
She's like, I don't know, but like they're like, mom is angry. She's not speaking to anybody. Turns out grandma told the kids that she was going to come to gymnastics, but told them to keep it a secret. And the kids don't keep secrets from mom and dad in their house. And so what's funny is, as much as we are not alike in the fact that the way that we raise our kids, there are still the same boundaries and rules.
Yeah.
And those kids didn't keep the secret, but mom or grandma never told the parents that she was coming. And I guess there's maybe some bad blood or whatever, some tension there. But the point was, it was interesting to me to see how differently they raised their kids than we do. And I mean, they were very vocal with one another, with lots of people around, like, we don't keep secrets in our house. And like, it was very obvious that was a problem for them. And I said to Alyssa, it's really great though, that they have those, like, even with family members.
You have the same deep roots.
Yes. Even with grandma and grandpa, we don't keep secrets. There aren't secrets.
Yeah.
It's not healthy.
No.
And it can be very dangerous.
It can be confusing for the children.
Yep, a lot of crazy stuff can happen.
It's like lying. You tell one lie, and then you got to remember that lie and tell another lie to take care of that lie.
Yeah. When somebody asks you about it, right? Lying is probably one of those situations where when it happens, I don't get it. Like, especially once you're caught, you might as well just fess up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why keep lying about it? But, alas...
And like Roger said, I think they do it so much that they get used to it, and that's the only thing they know how to do.
It's just natural.
Yeah.
Well, how does one tell such a lie that, one, they can remember it?
Yeah.
Because let's say I lie to Sid, and then Sid tells Roger that, oh my gosh, did you hear about Michael? And then Roger comes to me and asks me, I have to remember the story I told Sid in order for my story to line up there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy to me. So
a lot of Seinfeld episodes go that way.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Lying is one of those things I'll never quite understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like kids, for the most part, they grow out of it. But some people, it's like you see adults do it more, and I don't understand it.
There are times when you see people. I think we talked about this last week. Like, social media becomes a very quick way to
get attention.
You're posting things on social media that aren't real.
Yes.
It's not real life.
It's for show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw this one particular photograph. It was a girl standing with a water bottle, and she was in like jogging attire, and her Instagram post said, headed out for a hike. And then her brother took a picture of her standing in their backyard and said, she says she's going for a hike, but she's literally standing in their backyard. What's the purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Just to gain
that dopamine. Why?
They want to look good.
They want to look good.
When you're starting to live for that, you're not living.
So we go back then to working out our own salvation. So we're lying just to lie, or we're doing something just for show. It gets us nowhere.
Yeah.
We have nothing to gain from it.
Do you know that God's word says there's no room in heaven for a liar?
Do you know the particular passage? I can look it up.
I think I have it. 1 Corinthians 6:9 through 11, Revelations 21:8.
So
it's in there more than once, so it's important.
Yeah, let's remember that one. Let's remember that one. What I was going to say is, if that's the case, if that's why we're doing it, then why do we turn around and come to church and have a public display of worship? Because that public display means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If your personal relationship outside of the church.
If everything else that you do is contradictory to if you could come in here on Sunday morning and wave flags and roll around on the floor, hang from the chandeliers, speak in tongues, do all the things. You could do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And none of it matters. It's all for show. If you don't, if the rest of your life
doesn't line up.
Right.
Yeah.
Intentionally doesn't line up. Again, we're all going to stumble. We're all going to fall short.
In some ways, that could fall right into the same line as, why do those people do those things on Facebook that they know, like you said, the hiking thing?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And some people go to church on Sunday and they go through all the motions because not only are they trying to convince everybody else, but they're trying to convince themselves. And they're trying to feel, important. And they're trying to feel, have this sense of
belonging.
So you could make that comparison there.
I joke with people all the time when they're telling me something where they're trying to convince me. I'm like, are you trying to convince yourself or me?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they are trying to convince themselves that the story that they're telling is true.
If they're talking more than a minute, they're trying to convince you.
Well, and let's be fair. We all don't start off on the same footing in life.
No.
I like to think I started off pretty good with two good parents and had pretty much everything I needed and wanted. So I didn't have to look for attention, but there are a lot of young people that they can't get attention from their parents or their loved ones. So they're striving for anything, that they can get. So when you're talking about those people trying to find their salvation, most likely, they've never been taught anything about God or Jesus, church, but they reach a certain stage in their life where they're, they want to find out about it, but they still are carrying all that baggage
right
from how they were raised, from the neglect, from not having love and attention. So asking that type of person to work out their own salvation, that's a little more difficult.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and it's not fair to just say that to them. That's one of those opportunities where it's a cop-out.
Yeah.
Because they don't necessarily understand what that means. They're going to need additional guidance. They're going to need
a lot
help.
of development.
Well, and you should know that from your context clues that
Yep.
you just gave us, that you're going to have to kind of...
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of development. Yeah.
Like hold their hand for a little bit.
Well, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
I'm not a hand holder. I never have been. And I hate to say that because people are like, you're a pastor, you're a hand holder. No, I'm really not. I'm like, here's what you need to know. Fly away, little birdie. And I just hope that you can do it. No, don't get me wrong. I'm going to check back in. But I want to give you a particular instance in which that I am actively dealing with. And I get a text message about every 4 or 5 weeks, a couple who's going through a rough patch. And about every 4 or 5 weeks, I'll get a text from one of the two. One will either say, hey, I'm looking forward to being back in church on Sunday. And then the other one might say, this relationship is miserable and I want out. Okay? Mm-hmm. And then 2 weeks later, they're the opposite. Mm-hmm. And then 2 weeks later, they're the opposite
it's a cycle.
Again. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to hold hands, but neither story is believable at this point.
Yeah, so you don't. You can't believe either.
Yeah, right. Yeah. What am I doing? So then I get the text that says, we're getting a divorce, and I'm really sorry to hear that. I hope that you guys can really be prayerful about it and figure it out. Yeah. And no, we've given up. 3 days later, hey, we're going to try to work it out. Oh my gosh, that's why I can't be a handholder.
Well, that's kind of like what I was saying last week, where stop asking me for advice
if you're not going to take it.
If you're not going to take it. The
yo-yo thing is hard for me because I didn't grow up that way. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like we were a pretty steady family. I had my grandma and grandpa on my dad's side lived right down the street. Mm-hmm. My mom and dad were happily married. I mean, I think anybody has struggles, right?
Yeah.
So for the most part, happily married. We had a house to live in. We always had everything we wanted. There were things we went without, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But you remember when starter jackets were a big deal?
Oh yeah, I still have one.
Do you have a Charlotte Hornets starter jacket?
It's a Washington Redskins.
Okay.
From 8th grade.
Yeah, so I got one too. And we didn't have everything, but we always had whatever. Yeah. So they would find ways to do that. Dad would work 2 jobs at Christmas to make sure they could provide for us. But my parents raised me to be independent. When I turned 18, I was gone day. Mm-hmm. I didn't look back. Mm-hmm. I didn't move back in with my parents.
Yeah.
I didn't have to call them and borrow money to pay.
Aren't you proud that?
Well, and so on my birthday, my dad sent me this really wonderful text. My dad and I have not always had a great relationship about how proud he is of where I'm at. He never, he just could never believe that this was going to happen and all of these things. And it all of that is because of how he raised me. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They didn't allow me to, if they sent me somewhere, if they want to send me to camp or whatever, there is no crying and coming home.
Yeah.
You're going.
Right.
You're
and that's that.
Because
or if you signed up for this,
you're finishing it. You're following
it.
through, right?
Yes.
Because that's how life works.
And at the time, you hated
all of them.
Why are they doing this? Why can't I quit? Now looking back, you're like, thank God they.
Because had I quit then, I would have quit every job I've ever had. Whenever the going got tough.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I thank them for the way that they raised me. But when I stop and I look at all of the things that I could have done differently in my 20s and even in my early 30s, my life could have been a whole lot different. Mm-hmm. But I hadn't started truly working out my own salvation. Yeah. I hadn't, I was more worried about me, the flesh, the things I wanted, the things that I had. And I allowed the world to influence all of that.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like when you're fresh out of high school and everything, that's what they're pounding into your brain. It's all your decision. Go for it. Whatever you want and this and that. And then you become so selfish and then you lose your relationship if you did have one at that time.
Yeah.
And just Rolls down.
No decision is ever mine. Every decision I make belongs to Alyssa.
It's probably good.
She inspires me. She inspires me. No.
She tells you.
No, it was one of the things that I didn't start doing this until way too late into our marriage. Mm-hmm. But when I started working at my current job, when they offered me, I hadn't been there but 6-8 weeks, something like that. They offered me the hotel general manager's job, which I had already been doing at my previous job, but I came to them part-time with a 3-year plan, planning to be in full-time ministry after 3 years. Okay, so I was only going to do part-time with them, and then I was bouncing out. And what happened was when they offered me that job, I looked at them and I said, I'm going to have to call my wife first. And they were blown away that I would not just say yes. They offered me a substantial amount of money. Normal people would have just said yes. Like, most people would have just said, absolutely, I'll do it.
But they also should have told you, hey, if you need to take time to think on it.
They were completely happy about it. They were thrilled that I said it. So we ended the meeting. I walked outside, and I said to my wife, I called her, and I said, hey, this is what's happening. And she said, did you tell him yes? And I said, no, I told him I wanted to call you first. She said, go back up there and tell them yes. So, but every time that I've ever had to make a decision like that, I've always gone back to her and said, hey, what do you think? Now, in fairness, also, whenever I'm driving home from work and I've had a terrible day, I call her and I say, hey, am I allowed to quit my job yet? The answer is always the same, no, because she knows it's a phase. It's a moment, right?
Yes.
But it wasn't until I realized that we're a team and we have to do these things together.
Right.
Yeah.
But we don't do those just one-offs either. When I took the management company job, when I moved from just the hotel to the management company, and I called her and I said, listen, this is a big pay jump, but my time is like, I'm married to this place now. Like, you are my second wife. Like, this is going to be a lot. And I want to make sure you're okay with that. And we were prayerful. We didn't make that decision the same day. We thought about it. We prayed about it. And when we realized it didn't matter, I was going to be married to it one way or another.
Right.
Might as well, like, let's try it. And if we didn't like it, you walk back. You know what I mean? You say, this isn't for us. It doesn't work. And then in doing that, we were blessed so abundantly because now we have like unlimited vacation time, a company car. They pay for all of my fuel. They gave me that Jeep at 17,000 or 7,000 miles. 7,000 miles. It's got 93,000 miles on it now. It's a 2019.
How many years?
It's 2019. I've had it for 2 years. I've had it for 2 years. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. But they tell me every time that I get a quarterly bonus or whatever, they always tell me the same thing. It's the easiest check to write because they know they can count on me for whatever it is that they need. Now, my wife also counts on me for a lot of stuff. So I have to find that balance in my life, and that's a real challenge. So when I'm going to prayer about, we're looking at, we're in a season of acquisition versus building. Because right now, building...
Roger,
I was gonna say he's not gonna be satisfied until he rips the cord out of that microphone. That's the only way he is gonna be satisfied.
I wasn't pulling on the microphone. Jeez,
if only we had video.
I know, right?
All the time heckling.
But when I need a fly swatter.
Yes. You know what? I just threw away a dowel rod that was about this long. That would have been perfect for swatting his hand. I'm going to go back out and get it out of the dumpster. It's just going to lean right here against the table. But whenever I have a decision to make and I go prayerfully, I'm praying for what's best for my family, for what's best for my relationship with Christ, and then what's best for my job. While it is important because it pays the bills, it is always going to take third place to...
As it should.
To my family. But like I said, they've blessed me with unlimited vacation time. I took last week off without a concern in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Collected a paycheck and still got to spend the entire week with my family. But the reason that they do that for me is because I don't abuse it.
Right.
Because I could take off every other week.
Yeah.
You told me I could have unlimited vacation time. You made the agreement. You wrote it in my contract.
They're like, yeah, well, now you're not getting things done.
And a lot of people would.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And I worked on my vacation. Now, I always did it after the kids went to bed or, everybody was taking naps or whatever, but that's a lie. I napped more than anybody while I was on vacation. But I always made sure that my stuff was completed and ready to go. But remember, I had a 3-year plan. The purpose of that story was that I had a 3-year plan. I was going to walk away from working in the world to be in full-time ministry.
How's that working out for you?
Well, I realized something though while I was doing it. If I did that, you would all hate me. Do you realize the projects we would have going on in this building? If I said to my wife today, I said, I've been busy all day. I said, I don't mind. I would rather be busy than sitting around, because when I sit around, I fall asleep on the couch or I'm not productive. So.
And then you feel shameful.
Right. So we would have 1 million half-finished projects in this building if it weren't for that job.
We only have 500,000.
Yeah, right now we only have about 500,000. So. Okay. Anybody else got anything? I've talked a lot. Cricket?
You got it?
No, I don't.
No. Come on. He said he was looking into it.
I've got it started.
He doesn't have it.
Yeah, I've got it started. I just haven't finished it yet.
Well, I think Philippians 2:12 is a inward work of the Holy Spirit with an outward evidence.
Yes.
And I think it's transformation, being transformed into what God wants you to be, and working it out, just like if you were a bodybuilder.
That's what I was just picturing.
Yeah. Like you have to work that out to get those muscles and those abs and all that hoopla.
And with that comes lots of tension and soreness.
Wait.
Michael's working out.
Working out. Well, I've been praying for muscles. That's not going to work. I got to go do something about it. Oh man.
Have you used that treadmill lately?
Yeah, I sat all of my sound equipment on it the other day whenever I was packing it up.
So it's a coat rack.
Nope.
No, it's a sound
booth.
Yeah, it's a miniature sound booth.
You're not at a desk a lot, right?
I am at a desk a lot.
You can get a walking mat.
Yeah, I actually, if I could, I'll ask my wife to help me do this. If I could get that treadmill into my office, I would be on it way more than, because I spend a lot of time right now in my office working on all sorts of crazy projects.
Pumping Iron is on Netflix right now. That's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think it was his
documentary.
Him and Lou Ferrigno, who became the Hulk.
Yeah,
yeah, it's like a documentary from when they were young.
I started watching it.
Their whole thing.
Yeah,
and it is one of those things when you realize, because the way I've always thought, if I would have just devoted all my energy that I have to one object since the time I was young. And I knew what that thing was, and I still didn't do it. But if I would have devoted all my energies to that one object,
I kind of feel like you
what
have,
would I become? But, no, I haven't. But you look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like he knew, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I want to do.
Yep.
And he devoted everything he had to that one object. And I think sometimes that's the difference between, because I can honestly say, okay, I'm pretty sure that God had a plan for my life from the time I was young, because he showed me what those things were when I was young, and I was very cognizant of those things. But you constantly get off track. You just constantly get off track, where there's other people who they don't get off track.
I'm going to build an exit here.
Yeah.
I mean, they are just right on point, and they stick with it, and they.
One of the most fascinating points in that documentary, and again, we're talking about a documentary about bodybuilding, but it is semi-relevant, because you do have to work it out. When you're talking about that, it does bring pain. What I thought was interesting was Arnold Schwarzenegger was in Austria.
I believe so.
That's where he was. I think so. He was working out at a gym there. He was winning all of the bodybuilding competitions in Austria, and he had decided that he wanted to come to the United States because California was the mecca for bodybuilding competitions. He gets to California and he wins second place. And he realizes that while he thinks he is working hard, he isn't working nearly hard as he has to in order to get first place. So I think that that's important to realize, is that a lot of times we think we're spiritually fit. We think we've got it all, like I'm good to go. And then something happens in your life and you realize really quickly, I am not as fit as I once thought that I was, because I've stopped exercising.
Right.
I've gotten to a place where I feel like I look good and I feel like, everything is good and right, and this is it. So I don't need to continue to work out. There are people who suffer with mental health issues that they start to feel better and they stop taking their medication, and they realize that the medication is what was making them feel better, but they don't know that until
it's too late.
Until it's too late. And so there's this whole our salvation is the exact same way.
Yes.
We can always feel spiritually fit. We can always feel like we've run the race, we've done the things, we've made it to where we need to.
So then we don't have to.
I can walk the rest of this mile. I watched a video. This guy was running a marathon and he's pumping to the end of the line. He gets close enough that he can see the finish line and he starts raising his hand, and he comes to a jog, and this other guy sprints right past him and crosses the finish line in first place. Because he had convinced himself that he had run the race, he had won.
Yep.
But he ended up taking second place because he gave up.
To prove my point that I haven't done that.
Oh, yes.
There's 2 things in school I hated. Shop class and mathematics. Now, what's my job that I do every day? I'm in a shop working with steel, and before that it was wood. And I'm inventory, shipping, receiving manager, which requires a lot of math. So,
wow.
Oh gosh.
But I guess I could think, well, those were 2 things I thought I was weak at, but now obviously I think it's something I do pretty well overall. Right. But it's not particularly what I wanted to do with my life. And, and if I would looking at a list, I'd be like, yeah, put that at the bottom.
Yeah.
And put these things up here. But it's flip-flopped. So, yeah.
I was thinking the history. Just diving deep into your books and stuff, and now you're going to take your Gettysburg.
But that's such a struggle.
Yeah.
So now it's like I have to work twice as
hard.
Yeah. Because now I'm older. There's a lot of other responsibilities. You got to work twice as hard now to fulfill that dream.
It's funny that you say that because I had actually thought the other day, so I tell people when I do an Elvis show, I started doing Elvis 20 years ago. Well, it's 21 years ago now. I was 16 years old when I did my very first Elvis show. And if you look on my Elvis page, you'll see the picture. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. But I was 16 years old when I did that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 37 years old. So I've been doing this for 21 years at this point, okay? But I took, 8 years where I didn't do anything. Like I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore. And now I look at where I'm at. Had I continued through that 8 years, I would have built and been so much better, had so much more to offer than what I have right now. So now, at 20 years in, I'm working twice as hard to get what some of these, in fairness, really terrible people are already doing. You know what I mean? These guys are competing in competitions, and I'm like, what are you wearing?
Yeah.
And I'm over here ready to go, but I haven't made it to that point yet.
Right.
So it's a big challenge.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It's a big challenge.
Crickets?
Life is a challenge.
It is, yeah. But it's all about how we work it too.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it can be, you can rule it or you can let it rule you.
Yeah.
But with the Lord,
roll it with
He
Him.
rules.
Yeah.
When we talk about working out our own salvation, there's just like Holly said earlier. The big part is we have to understand that there's compromise with one another. That is your salvation, not mine.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mine is mine and not yours,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to know that there is compromise in that. So while we don't always agree with what other people are doing in their lives, it's not necessarily it's not our place to try to decide whether or not it's right or wrong for them.
Well, I think you got to keep in mind too. One of the ultimate goals is to create as strong a congregation with people as you can.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're constantly the person that goes in and criticizes and talks behind people's back and constantly trying to tear down the pastor or things like that, it's like, no, it doesn't matter how right you think you are. Yes, everybody has their own things they have to work out, including the person pointing the finger. But that that's one of the main things is God wants us to congregate together in numbers as much as possible. And if we're doing a lot of things that make sure that that person's not going to come back to church, that's not good. There's nothing.
I mean, that's just
no
that's
good
just
comes
the devil
from
right there.
from that approach to telling somebody to work out their salvation or don't come back or you don't belong here. That's
that just kind of
you can't be that narrow-minded about what it takes somebody, because like I said, you have no idea. Like Holly said, you don't know what's in somebody's heart. You don't know where they've been.
Nope. That's my biggest thing.
So it's tough.
Like you don't know where they've been.
Yeah. And I think it's natural. We all do it. We can all, even if we don't say it, we can look at somebody and be like, wow,
And
they don't have it together at all.
And I've personally had people judging me based on what I'm doing, and not even sinning wise.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking characteristically, which was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead, Mike.
I was actually going to bring up something that happened here a while ago. So this is a good story. One Sunday morning, I got up, and it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, and there's somebody in our parking lot. And so I look at the camera, and it's some white van, And they walk up to the door, and they walk away, get back in the van, they drive off. And I thought, that was stinking weird. But now I'm eager to get to the church because I want to know what they've done, right? So I get dressed, get to the church, and there are these papers spread all over the front sidewalk, okay? So I gather them all up, I bring them inside, and I start reading them. And I'm like, this is bizarre. Like, this is really weird. And then I get to a certain point where I'm like, okay, all right, now I get what's happening. And the premise was that you should that a church should teach the entire Bible, not just part of the Bible. So this wasn't anything that I had done. As a matter of fact, this was something that Sid had done,
or not had done.
But here's basically what was happening. This was somebody who doesn't attend church at all. They don't go to church anywhere.
Oh, he's got TV churches.
Okay, well, TV churches, but that's not the same. Okay,
no.
So writing down all of the handwritten. All of these scriptures, and then like 15 photocopies. I don't know if I was supposed to like hand them out to people as they were coming in the door or what they wanted from this. But so I get all of these copies, and they basically say that we as a church are not doing right by the community because there are things that the decisions that Sid has made in her life for her own personal health and safety that this person knows about and doesn't like. Okay, this is not a bad thing. What Sid has done is not like she didn't go out and chug 17 beers, drive home, and hit somebody. Like, it's not like that. No. This is a decision that she has made to be safe and healthy, okay? And they're so angry at her that they decide to write this. It's 7 pages at least. I've got one. I kept one in my office. I saved it. Like, I'm like, did somebody put time into this? They really felt passionately about it. And at the end, it said, so does your church not believe in the Bible? And I immediately went to the well, I guess we got to work out our own salvation here in Drumlin, because what kind of statement was that? Like, what are they doing? They're judging a whole body of people based on their feelings, not logic, but their feelings, their emotions about somebody else's well-being. Yeah. That's crazy to me.
They're letting their emotions take over their logic.
Yeah. And I think that happens a lot whenever we start to say things that are hurtful to people about the way that they're living their lives. We become emotionally invested in it, and we want to say mean and hurtful things. Listen, when the Methodist Church split, they had a great big write-up in the Times Reporter about it. Did any of you see it?
I did see it, yeah.
Did you guys read the comments?
No.
Holy smokes, they were awful. They were awful.
Was it the comments on Facebook?
Yes.
Okay.
People just viciously attacking one another. And I'm thinking to myself, if I were the Times Reporter, I'd just take the post. There's no health. Nothing healthy coming out of this. Nothing healthy coming out of this. And so what it does is it puts the church in a place where we feel like we have to defend ourselves. And I will tell you this, I'll never be in that place. If you don't like it, that's okay. You don't have to like everything that we do, but we're figuring it out just the same as every other church is figuring it out. I will tell you this. Never in a million years did I ever think that I was going to pastor. Number one. Never in a million, billion, trillion years did I ever think I was going to pastor through a pandemic.
Yeah.
And then never did I think we were going to recover from it.
And you were starting out.
That's what I'm saying. I wasn't even 3 years in at that point. And we're there were seasoned pastors who were like, I ain't doing this, and they were bailing. And I'm like, no, we're going to figure it out. And it was hard. It was painful. It was a struggle. And if people are judging churches based on how they handled that situation or how they're handling any situation, they don't understand what it's like to be doing the jobs that we're doing. There's no reason to be angry with one another. There's no reason to dislike one another. Listen, I like every other church. Most of the pastors in our community I'm friends with. I don't like any of the Catholics. I'm just kidding. That was a joke. It was a joke. I actually don't know any of them. But I don't they're every church in the area. If I see those pastors, we stop and we have a conversation. As a matter of fact, it drives my wife nuts because she can't go anywhere. We caught Easton talking to some lady at the park the other day. Easton's just over there just telling her about how he likes to do Elvis, and he goes to the Amish Country Theater, and it turns out that Pastor Travis and Leslie Wright at Lifeway, it's Travis's mom.
Oh my God.
So she's like, I'm not a complete stranger. I do know Michael. And Alyssa's like, oh, I know Travis and Leslie. Yeah. And she's like, oh, okay, great. But Easton was just over there talking to her. But we can't go anywhere without somebody knowing me. And while that drives her nuts, she also understands that that's what being in ministry is at this point. You have connections with people you wouldn't normally have connections with. I said hello to a girl who got fired from my job in the Dollar General one time. And she said, hi. Mm-hmm. And then as she walked away, she started shouting obscenities at me. I didn't fire her. I had nothing to do with it. But apparently she was angry at me for that. And I thought, how crazy is it that we would be angry with somebody for something that they didn't even do?
Yeah, that you weren't even...
Right.
You had no part in, but you were...
But here's what I realized.
Guilty by association.
But here's what I realized. When they don't know Jesus, it is really easy to just blame
Let your
one...
anger...
Right. You just blame one person for everything bad that's ever happened in your life.
Yeah.
So
especially since she's seen you there before.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You were talking about COVID. This is kind of off topic, but
everything's off topic on this conversation.
That's what we do. A term. It was called the Great Resignation after COVID.
Yes.
And I'm like, hey, I was part of that. But it was 48 million people quit their jobs after COVID and looked elsewhere.
Yeah.
48 million. I'm like, oh my gosh. I didn't see if that was in the U.S. or the world, but that's still a crazy amount.
Yeah.
Because they weren't happy.
The crazy part was 48 million people, and you still can't hire anybody.
Yeah.
It's still impossible to hire people.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
Why are you looking like that, Roger?
Well, I was going to move my mic, but I didn't want to get hit with a stick.
I have a stick.
He looks like a little kid that just got his hands.
I got caught in a cookie jar. And believe me, I got plenty of them to get caught in.
Linda, if you're listening, I think that was a dig.
Yeah, you do.
I think that was a dig. Okay, so does anybody else have anything? No? Okay, I want to share a quick story because our kids were at camp. We just picked them up today.
Yeah.
So we went to pick up Emmett, obviously, and we got there, and this place there were only about 25, 30 kids at camp altogether, which, by the way, I got to go and do an illusion show for all of the kids at camp. We had so much fun. The adults were standing in the back like, how are you doing that? I'm dying because, like, I'm making adult joke. Like, you guys remember or have you seen the rabbits, rabbits?
Yeah.
The trick is called hippity hop, and the idea is that the white rabbit, there's a white rabbit in a white hat, black rabbit in a black hat. You make them trade places, but all you're doing is twisting them around. They're painted different colors on both sides. Okay. And at the end of the trick, and the kids catch on to that, obviously. That's the purpose. But at the end of the trick, you lift the covers off, and then the kids are like, but turn them around. And you turn them around, and they're actually red and yellow on the backside. So it's not black and white like they originally thought it was going to be. So they're completely different colors. Kids are blown away. So the rabbits, I've named them. The white rabbit is Amal, and the black rabbit is Juan. And once you've seen Juan, you've seen them all. Right? Okay. So I tell that joke. The adults are laughing. The kids are looking at me like, what? And then we get to the end of that, and the adults are all like, okay, this guy really can't do magic. Like, this was my second trick. They're like, my first trick was they draw a card out of a giant deck of cards, and I have them put it back in a tiny deck of cards, and then I find their card. So
yeah, that one you did a couple weeks ago. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. So the adults are like, okay, this guy can't really do magic. This is supposed to be funny until they see the rabbits are red and yellow, and then they're like,
mind blown.
So now they're all trying to figure out how I'm doing these tricks. Anyhow, so we were there. The kids had a great time, but our kids were just like so excited that I was there doing that. So I was happy I got to do that. Went to pick them up today. Every one of our kids had such a great time at camp. I was so thankful we were able to send them. And the church paid for half of each one of them so that they were all, to make it affordable.
Yeah, for sure.
It was $200 a kid.
Yeah.
It was incredibly expensive. So
especially if you have more than one kid.
Right. So we're really hoping they do that again next year so that we can send them. But Pastor Rod and Pastor Susan from Denison said that our kids were some of the best behaved kids out of the entire group. They were just very respectful, which is a big deal for kids their age. But yeah,
that's awesome.
So really excited that they got to do that. And it wasn't terribly far this time. You know, it used to be at Camp McPherson, which was an hour and 20 minutes.
At least.
Something like that. If you get lost, longer. But this one's in Beach City.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite memories just in childhood in general is like kids camp.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they had a great time. They got to swim. Emmett said they swam for 5 hours yesterday, and the water was so cold they couldn't stand it, but they just kept swimming. So.
Kids are resilient.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah. But they had a really good time, and like I said, Pastor Rod, Pastor Susan said that they were fantastic. We really got to enjoy some time with them on Monday night afterwards, just chatting about what was going on. But one of the things that I witnessed while I was there was a little boy who he just could not stop crying. He wanted to go home so bad. He wanted to go and see his mom. Now, I'm telling this story because it's actually a funny story. Okay, so this kid is sitting in his chair and he's sobbing uncontrollably, and he must have a watch that he can only call his parents on. And my wife was talking about getting him at one, but anyhow, the kid's calling his mom. His mom's not answering. So Rod's like, I'll call her from my phone. Calls. She doesn't answer. He calls again. She doesn't answer. Calls one more time, and she answers. And he is like, hey, such and such. He's like, hold on one second. He hands the phone off to this little boy, and the little boy is like trying to like compose himself to talk to his mom. Turns out Rod called the wrong person. So this lady's trying to tell him, honey, I'm not your mom. Give the phone back to Rod. And Rod has walked away at this point. The boy can't find Rod to give the phone. It was all of about a minute that all of this transpired, but I looked at Alyssa and I was like, I bet that lady was really confused because Rod's just like, hey, Sarah, hold on, and hands the phone off, and like this kid's just like blubbering into the phone. Was Sarah too.
Yeah. Well, by the time he actually talked to the real mom, he was probably all calm.
He wasn't. No, he wasn't. He was having a really hard time. Yeah, he was having a really hard time. But again, I'm thankful that our kids were all able to go. They made their way through it. It was really good experience for them. So I'm thankful for Rod and Susan for putting that on, because that's not something I could have done. Yeah. We were loading up all the stuff from the magic show, and I saw a toad hop. This is not a joke. Saw a toad hop across the sidewalk, and I was like, I'm done. I'm getting in the Jeep. You guys have to finish it now. Like, one of two things is gonna happen. We're gonna set the place on fire, or I'm out of here. Like, we gotta decide now.
And there's probably more than one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the one that I saw was only about the size of a dime, but I still saw it, and it was there. And where there's one, there are many. Yeah. So I was out.
Hey, I went to Camp McPherson one time as a, what do you call those? I went as a helper.
Oh, like an advisor?
Like a camp counselor?
Yeah. Counselor. And I got homesick right
now. Well, you also went as an adult, and we almost had to send a search party for the two of you. Alyssa and Holly left to go to Camp McPherson together. I can see on the phone that they are close, but Alyssa's not answering her phone. Holly's not answering her phone. Were you guys taking something? Because Susan called me.
Yeah, something with the music.
Susan called me, and they're like, where are they? They're not here yet. I'm like, well, they should be. They should have been there an hour ago, but I don't know where they are. And it had started to snow, so they were just taking their time getting there. But and finally, I think Holly got phone service finally and was able to call me and let me know they were okay, but they were pulling in. But it's terrible, because I'm thinking to myself, I'm about to have to load all of these kids in this car and go driving looking for them, because I don't know what else to do. Search and rescue. Yeah, out there with the mag light, looking for their car. But, always fun. You know what I mean? Like we do a lot of fun stuff. Hey, so this is an announcement for everybody that's listening. We're doing end of summer celebrations September 10th, and the best part is that we're going to have inflatables for the kids. So we're going to have a bounce house and an obstacle course, which, by the way, I'm challenging Holly to the obstacle course. She just doesn't know it yet. She ate a cricket. She can surely run this obstacle course with me.
Of course I can.
I think it's got a part you have to climb, too, just so you know. We're trying to secure a dunk tank so that Roger and I can get dunked. We're going to do pulled pork, mac and cheese, desserts.
I think I'm going to whip some coleslaw up with that, too.
Okay, some coleslaw. So we're going to have a really good time. We're going to do kickball, maybe sack races, three-legged race. We're going to do lots of, like, summer picnic games, but we're just going to do it right after church on Sunday on the 10th. And we're really looking forward to that. So we're hoping everybody can come and have a good time. And then in October, I think it's the 20th, we're going to do movie night. So we're going to show Jesus Revolution. I'm going to borrow the popcorn popper from work, the big one. And we're going to pop popcorn and just watch a movie and hang out, chill. It's BYOC. Bring your own candy. We'll provide popcorn.
Hide it in my purse.
Yeah, hide it in your purse. Yes, and we're gonna have our little flashlights when we check in people's purses for candy. Good stuff. Yeah, so we're excited. We've got that, and then in November we'll have our council elections. We'll have 2 seats available on council. So if anybody's interested, let me know. We'll have 2 council seats we're filling, and then in December we'll do our holiday meal, and I call it that because it'll be Thanksgiving and Christmas rolled into one meal. Holly's going to be working on that with the ladies group, And then obviously we'll do candlelight service on the 24th. So I don't know what day the 24th falls on, and like what day of the week it is. And then the other thing that I would say,
it's a Monday.
Is it really?
It might be this. I think it is.
Oh yeah, because it was Sunday last year, so chances are it is a Monday. Christmas was on Sunday last year, so chances are.
No, it's Sunday.
Christmas Eve is Sunday?
Yes.
Okay. Oh yeah, because it would only shift by one day, right?
Yeah.
So, so we'll have Christmas Eve service on that Sunday night, and then, So and then we've got some stuff started planned for the.
Will we do church Sunday morning and then have Sunday night?
That is yet to be determined. Thank you for asking now, because I would have had to make that decision on the fly. I would say we're still going to have service on that morning. I don't see why we wouldn't. We'll just have a regular service that morning and then flip to candlelight
in the evening. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yep. We'll do 6 o'clock just like we always do for that. It would be nice and low key. Invite your friends and family. Get together and celebrate. And then we've got some stuff for like January, February, and then we're going to work out the rest of the year. We're hoping in like November, December, we're going to actually provide everybody with a real 2024 calendar that you can like actually flip.
Nice.
That you can hang on your wall and actually use versus getting your stuff a month in advance. We're hoping to have the whole year planned. The only holdup right now is the Easter egg hunt, and it's not really the egg hunt that's the holdup.
Yeah.
There's potential for partnering with some of the other churches, so we want to make sure we know whether or not that's going to happen before we decide exactly what we're going to do and how we're going to do it.
And if you guys are listening, all we need help is with stuffing eggs and being here to volunteer.
Yes. 35,000 eggs next year, so we're going to need to stuff a lot of eggs.
Yes.
We're going to have to mow the other field.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Here's what I'm really trying to do. This is going to sound dumb. I'm trying to find a helicopter.
I knew you were going to say that.
To drop them?
Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. I'm only going to do that if they let me go in the helicopter.
Well,
it's part of the fun.
And pull the lever.
Yeah, well, the one that I saw, they just dumped them out of totes, which seems dangerous.
Then you could do the flying Elvis.
Oh, even better. I'll tell you what. Here's what we're doing. I'm going to get them to like one of those ladder ropes that hang off the side.
Remember you said you always talk to Alyssa first about your decision?
I'm not right now. No, I'm making this decision without her. I'm making this decision. Quick, get through the chopper.
Once in your life.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm going to have some fun. Darn it. Get through the chopper.
Jumping out of a plane.
Parachuting Elvis. We're doing this. This is happening. We're doing this.
You can sing, I'll fly.
Until I hit the ground really hard because I grabbed my backpack and not the parachute.
People thought having you in a Elvis suit on the pulpit was crazy.
Yeah.
But wait till they see this.
Wait till they see this, right. Yeah. Oh, boy. Never ceases to amaze me, the ideas that form in this room. You guys give me way too much freedom, and you should really stop.
I tried to reel you in. Like, no, this is my one decision.
Yes, I'm making this executive decision right here. Gee,
Will he gets home.
Yeah. If she's listened already, I'll definitely. Matter of fact, she'll either call me or text me on the way home and be like, you're not doing that.
Your phone just lit up.
Yeah.
I might get a call. I don't know.
Oh, goodness. Sid, will you pray for us tonight?
All right. Dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you for the time that we've had tonight, and I pray that everyone, whether they were in their car, at home, in the future, wherever, that something just lays on their heart, whatever we discussed today, if it was something funny or, a little more serious, as long as it was all good-hearted. I just pray for travel mercies and be with us through the remainder of this week. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.